Oh, wait. We got cold open it.
Oh, I got a great cold open for you.
Hot diggity dog. Tell me all about it, buddy.
I haven't told you about this, but so we were outside, because I'm living in the country now, right? So we're outside having a bonfire, and the wood's a little wet because we had some rain. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go over here where there's a little bit of a fire, like a brush fire earlier. There's like a bunch of dried sticks and stuff, so that'll help get my fire going.
Right.
And it's pitch black out besides the fire. And I'm walking away from my in-laws, my wife, and my son, and I get about, 25 to 30 feet away from them. And all of a sudden I hear this big crash come down from a tree into the woods.
Yeah.
And Richard, through my head, is like, nope, I don't care what it was. I don't care if it was a big stick. I don't care if it was a fat squirrel or a fat raccoon or a possum or just a deer running through the woods. My first instinct was like it was probably a bear. So I turn around, walk back to the fire. I'm standing there for another 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, I'm kind of curious what that was. And I'm a big country manly man now.
I know bears can climb trees, but do they sleep in trees?
I think the cubs might.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that. But like I said, I'm a big country boy now. I got boots. I wear cutoff tees. I got jeans. I got a tractor. I'm a country guy. I should be good with this. So I walk, and I get about maybe 10 feet away from where I heard the big falling thing. And Richard, what I hear?
It was a kitty cat.
You know what I did? Yeah, it was a big kitty cat, I think.
You don't know that.
It was a cat. Either way, it was a cat that was pissed off and didn't want anybody around it. So either A, it was a cat, which, those things are vicious in themselves. Like, have you ever tried to fight a feral cat?
No. Why would you want to? Who's trying to fight feral? Who's out trying to fight feral cats?
Well, my cat that passed away, Lulu, R.I.P., she had like something go wrong with her brain, I think, like Alzheimer's type stuff. And she became like feral. And it is the most horrific
thing. So to answer that question, you're trying to fight feral cats. Come here, kitty. I'm always down for a cougar. Come here.
So either it was a regular cat, or it was a bobcat, which are like the size of like a medium dog, like a small to medium dog. Okay. So it would definitely tear me up. Yeah. Or Richard, it could have been a real life cougar, like a big cougar, like 90 to 100 pounds kitty cat.
Oh, okay. When you said a cougar, I was like, don't talk about your wife that way.
I know, right? She's getting close to that age. I haven't said it to her face yet because I don't know what happened. Yeah, I know, right?
Thank God she doesn't listen to this.
I know. I've been on the fence about being like, hey, babe, you know what you are? You're a MILF. She'd probably kick me in the face. I'd be like, whoo, I like it.
And you're like, no, it's but what about the LF? LF. I said, like to.
So, yeah. So I've got that potentially behind my house. And maybe it is like a 40-plus-year-old lady that was living in the trees. And she really wasn't going, she was going, come here.
Yeah.
Like,
I've got hard seltzer.
Babe, save me. My clothes are getting ripped off.
I'm so wasted.
You want to go to a piano bar? There's your cold open.
Cold open! All right, let's start the show. What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of romance. Today, buddy, you have a thing for me. You're going to tell me there was a thing that I was going to watch on Netflix, but I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because you said that you were going to watch it and then tell me all about it. And so I wanted to go in clean. I wanted to come into this as a wee babe, naked as the day I was born.
You said Netflix, and actually, I think there is a documentary on Netflix, but I watched the one on HBOMax.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And it's all about the disaster that was Woodstock 99.
Oh my. I really wanted to go to this when I was of that age.
How old were you?
I would have been 17, 18 at that point.
Because I was
What day was it in 99?
It was July 15th through the 22nd.
Okay, so
somewhere in there.
I would have been 17.
Well, I've got the wiki up here. I can tell you the exact dates.
If it was summer of 99, I would have been 17.
Yeah, July 22nd through the 25th.
Okay. So this was actually on my radar as a pup.
So tickets for this, they weren't that expensive really. Like they were showing tickets for $100 to get in, which
17-year-old me could not afford $100 tickets. I think that plus travel cost is what dissuaded me.
Yeah, it would take. I mean, I don't know. I don't think money wise that's a huge difference from there to now. I'm sure there's a little bit of a difference, but
but there's a difference between me now and 17-year-old me working minimum wage, working for $5.15 an hour.
Yeah, that's 2 checks.
Yeah,
just to get the ticket.
Yeah,
and then so one thing they said in here too, I didn't realize. So you couldn't bring in your own water and food and stuff. So you had to buy it all there too, and they had water for $4 a bottle, which is probably about concert price. That didn't seem too ridiculous.
That's okay. Wait, you weren't allowed to bring in your own water? See, I think for a festival that's kind of bogus.
Well, and they did provide water though. But apparently in this, they talked about there was just huge lines to get to it. It didn't work all the time. Day 2, one of the water lines busted. And so that's where you kind of got the flooding effect.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves? So did this take place? This took place in the exact same spot as the original, correct?
No.
This actually, not the exact same farm, but in the same area.
Let me look. So there's been 3 Woodstocks. The one in 94 happened in Saugerties, New York. And let me look where the original was. I think the original was Rome, New York.
Yes.
So I think this one... No, the original happened in Bethel, New York.
Okay.
So, I mean, roughly the same area, I think. I don't think they're huge distances apart.
Gotcha.
But Richard, the one that took place in Rome, New York. So the guy who set up the original Woodstock set up the Woodstock 94, which... for all intents purposes was considered successful. There wasn't a lot of as much chaos that happened in the 94 as there was in the 99.
No, I heard there were some great sets. I think Woodstock was when there were a couple bands that played there, and that's what kind of blew them up. I think Korn played Woodstock in 94, and that's what kind of blew them up a little bit.
They were big on 99. I'm just looking through real quick on the 94 set. 9 Inch Nails was at 94. Salt and Pepper.
Ooh.
Primus.
Ooh, I love Primus.
The Cranberries. Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Let It Linger.
Porno.
Ooh, and that was Blood Sugar Sex Magic Chili Peppers.
94, yeah. Green Day. I don't see Korn in 94. They were one of the big ones in 99.
Okay.
But one of the things that just starting out, I think even in this, they kind of talked about a lot of people make Woodstock 69, the original Woodstock, is this peaceful, amazing, nothing bad happened festival.
Well,
and apparently,
as far as I know, weren't Hell's Angels running security in 69?
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah.
And that was kind of one of the reasons that there weren't a lot of quote unquote incidents, was because you fuck up and then a biker who probably has 4 murders under his belt was going to be hey, stop it.
Beats the shit out of you. But I mean, apparently there was they said, if you skip the documentary that came out about Woodstock, the one that showed how all the cool stuff that people remember, there was a lot of stuff that happened. There was a lot of, I think they even said they had to call in the National Guard to get the original Woodstock dispersed.
Oh yeah, I could see it.
And there was just lots of trash left, and it was kind of glamorized, I guess is the way to put it. And there wasn't as many cameras and stuff like that.
Sure.
Woodstock 94, they didn't touch on too much, except that they really hammered on, I guess there was a big mud pit in Woodstock 94.
Yeah, I do remember that. The thing, because I think there was a big mud pit in the one in 69 too. And that was kind of a thing. Right. I think the reason that people glamorize the original so much is because I feel like it was it's a way to showcase the embodiment of the quote unquote hippie movement. You know what I mean? Like that, not necessarily like from a political standpoint, but just from a like musical / cultural standpoint. It was like that, like the culture in that respect, like culminated at that point at Woodstock. Like that's, you know, if it's like, I'm trying to think of like a great way to describe it. It's like if you could take one event that completely embodies a cultural movement, it would be probably Woodstock. Yeah, and I think like Woodstock was in '69, and I think after that, like that movement itself kind of like, you know, died off.
Yeah, because I mean, like the '60s were really kind of that push, and then the 70s, like all those people that were like 18, 19, 20, like they started getting older, started having families and jobs, and kind of like got out of that kind of mindset. Yeah, not really maybe that mindset, but they kind of started like, oh well, now I've got a job and I'm working 9 to 5, and you know, you just kind of grow up. I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a good thing that they talked about that a little bit. And one of the big things they talked about with like Woodstock '69 is like exactly what you said. It was part of a movement. They were fighting, you know, against like the Civil War. There was a lot of, you know, kind of more, you know, I'm not a savant with '69 and that kind of time, but you know, there's just this whole movement going on.
Yeah.
And flash forward to 99.
Conflict in Vietnam. You had conflict in Vietnam. You had civil rights. You had you know, like you had the base, like the beginnings of a progressive movement, so to speak.
Yeah, a lot of young people fighting for kind of different causes.
Yeah.
And like they talked about in like '99, there really wasn't any of that.
No.
And so there's a lot of these people that were of that same age that had a lot of this angst, but they didn't have anything to kind of like put it towards. Yeah. And so that was one of the things that they kind of talked a little about, like why 99 kind of blew up the way it did, which to me is kind of weird to say like 99, this is the case. And I don't really know why 94 would have been that much different.
Well, but I would argue that in 94, you didn't have things like, you know, obviously like you didn't have like a conflict in Vietnam or something like that to rally against, but you did have kind of the beginnings of you know, a more progressive movement for women, a more like kind of the some of the initial stirrings of the LGBTQ movements, you know, like that. You know, in kind of the early 90s, and you look at like the music in the early in like the 94 era, it was grunge. And what was grunge? I think, you know, grunge was basically kind of helped channel an angst towards not necessarily the system in terms of like a government, but maybe like the system in terms of corporate / government, you know, like those kids in 94, you know, like they had a good, you know, 17, 18 years of their parents telling them they're going to go work they're going to go to college and then go work, sit in an office cubicle for the rest of their lives like they did. And they're like, man, I don't want to fucking do that. That sounds terrible.
So do you think that was, and so this is where it's kind of tough for me to wrap my head around, because like in the 90s, I was a kid. Like I said, when 99 happened, I was 13. So I was really just kind of like coming into like teenage angst years, right?
Yeah.
And like looking at music, like 99's music's really when you kind of had that a little bit more heavier sounding music.
Yeah.
And 94 was that, like when you think prototypical, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer 90s, you know, at the Bronze type music, right? Well, like a lot of instrumental, and because like here they had Sheryl Crow, they had like Live, they had the Cranberries, Like not like heavy anger. Like there was like anger in the music, but it wasn't heavy anger, if that makes sense.
No, it was more. Well, it was more of a. It was more of a poetic kind of angst towards
that's a good way to
towards quote unquote the system.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, like Temple, with bands like Temple of the Dog and stuff like that, and like the free, the whole Free Tibet thing, like that was also like really big at that time. So I mean, there was not a political movement on the scale of what things were in '69. There were a lot more kind of like niche causes, I would say.
Yeah, I could see that.
You still had African Americans fighting against things like police brutality and stuff like that. Because Rodney King was around that time.
That's true. But was that? I guess that just feels like 94 to 99 feels like such a short period of time. Because I would imagine a lot of the people that were at 94 were at 99.
Yeah, I agree. I would, I guess if you're asking what the difference is I think that like between 94 and 99, there wasn't any real marginal change. And so the music got a bit angrier, I would say.
Well, and you saw like you'd mentioned Korn, like Korn started coming out. Like you really had more of that heavy.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be more like kind of like, like there was heavy music like Black Sabbath and stuff like that. But the actual heavy music, I felt like became more mainstream.
Yeah. The more aggressive music became mainstream.
Yeah. And the big difference between this, so Woodstock 94 was 2 days in August, and Woodstock 99 was 3 days. And in this documentary, they talk about, so in Woodstock 69, they had like some very rudimentary fencing around the whole property.
Right.
So people were basically kind of like skipping the ticket line and just like walking over the fence. That's why they had like so many people. That's why they had even more people there.
Yeah.
Woodstock 94, the same guy who put on Woodstock put this on, and he put up a little bit better fencing, but same thing. People would just come right through the fencing.
Can we also marvel at the fact that like even 99, like all of these concerts put together without the advantage of the internet, really. I mean, you had the internet in 94 and in 99, but it wasn't like there wasn't like a web presence, I would say, like aside from, let's say, like especially in 94, it was like probably like a GeoCities page with a logo on it.
94 would probably, I don't know how you would have got tickets, but they showed like this 99 would have been the first
you would have called.
Well, no, they had Ticketmaster tickets on in 99. I remember seeing a couple of those in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
So Ticketmaster or something equivalent to that was there. So it might have been like a call and they sent it to you. Well,
like, okay. Like I remember when like I was in high school, if I wanted to go to a concert, there were places in town that basically like Ticketmaster would allow places to sell tickets.
Oh, okay.
So like I would go to like, I remember like the one place was like in a grocery store. So I'm like standing in line at a fucking grocery store to buy tickets for concerts.
That's awesome.
And it was through Ticketmaster.
Okay. So they were kind of established before like a web presence.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's probably what a lot of these kids did. They stood in line at like a grocery store or wherever and then bought tickets that way. They found out when that, hey, tickets are out. And so then they would go and, and buy them that way. At like the customer service desk at a grocery store. That's where I got tickets to concerts.
And so like with Woodstock now, like I said, they had kind of some rudimentary fences around the first two, but this one they put up like actual like concrete, like barrier walls that they put graffiti on to make it kind of look cool. But it was definitely more of like you're locked in. And the location that you're at, Richard, wasn't like a open field with lots of grass. It was an old Air Force base. So it was completely concrete.
Yeah, it was all like concrete. Who wants to sleep on that?
Well, and they had tents and stuff like that. But like the weather during these 3 days, it was like high 90s, like touching 100. And so you had tons of people who like were getting dehydrated, lots of drinking. I'm sure there's lots of other stuff that was going on, and just lots of different issues with that. It's kind of sad, but I don't remember. They only talked about one specific death, and I think there was like 3 or 4 that happened.
Okay.
But one of the guys, they're following his journal as he's going through the couple days, and like his main thing is he wanted to be in the pit for Metallica, I think, or Korn, one of those two. And what happened with him is he ended up like they were talking about like I've never really thought about this, but people would get so dehydrated and overheated that they'd go into hypothermia, and so they would start feeling cold because they were basically going into like heat stroke.
Yeah,
and that's what happened to him. And like I always, whenever you think of like going to something like this, I think this documentary really kind of showed just the massive amount of people. Like I've been to concerts, I've been to festivals that maybe 20, 30,000 people, and I never get in the crowds for that. I stay weighted back.
Sure.
Not that I'm like super claustrophobic, but something like that just kind of gives me the willies. But they showed these crowds, and it's just this like sea of people, and it's like 400 to 500,000 people that they estimated were at this concert.
Whew.
And so I didn't realize this, but they had the stage, and then they had 3 sets of speakers going out. So like, I think it was Davis from Korn was talking. He's like, whenever you're singing a song, you could see in the crowd as they were reacting when it got to them through the speakers. So literally people like 3 speakers back, like they're like 30 seconds behind where you're at in the actual set.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that's
that would
cool,
be like so jarring.
Yeah. But could you imagine like being like in the middle of that? Like they were talking too. One thing that also blew my mind, just thinking about the massive amount of people, they were talking like if you lost somebody, like if you and I went and I was like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and I go to the bathroom and you're not where I left you, how would I find you in that many people? Yeah. And they start talking. It's like, well, I mean, I would just text him. It's like, wait,
you don't
very, very, very few people had phones then.
You didn't have a phone. You didn't have a phone then.
Yeah. They had lost people tents, Richard. So like if you lost your friend, you would go to these tents trying to find them, which again, 400, 500,000 people, like there's going to be like probably hundreds of those tents. How are you going to find somebody like that? Yeah. The guy that I talked about that passed away, his friends, like they left to go back to the tent because I think they were just like done for the night or what it was. 'Cause that's the other thing that was crazy about this. So you had the concerts all day, and then at night they had basically a rave going on. So it was like 24/7 drinking, partying going on at this place.
It's crazy that they did everything at one stage, because like like I've gone to festivals and there's usually and maybe there's a reason for this, but like there's multiple stages with stuff going on.
Yeah, the best part about Woodstock 99 is they had a second stage and it was kind of covered, so a lot of people went there to get out of the heat because it was the only place to get shade.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple bands they talked about that got a lot of kind of exposure because of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, so it's just like it kind of almost made me claustrophobic to think about how many people were there. Yeah. And the people that were putting it on were like, for the most part, like everybody was cool, but I think I don't remember the exact number, but it was essentially like 10,000 or 15,000 of the people were there were the really, really like people who kind of caused a lot of the trouble. And it's one of those,
well, I mean, think about it. Like, let's say we talk about like 1%. Well, like 1% of 500,000 is still like 500
4,000 people. Yeah. And most of those are probably going to be together. And like it's I couldn't quite get my head wrapped around like this, but like, so this documentary was done now 21 years later. Mm-hmm. And I've heard some people talk about like, well, why did some of these people like talk about all this stuff now? There's one guy who like on the last night when everything went to shit, he was actually like looting stuff, and he was like, they looted the food trucks and like threw all the shit out and was like burning pretzels, and he was talking about doing that and about how like stupid it was. And a lot of people are like, why would you go on camera and do that?
Statute of limitations.
Exactly. Yeah. All that stuff is lapsed now.
I knew it.
So, I mean, you're kind of safe to say what you're doing. But, I mean, you think about like herd mentality type stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, you've been at this thing for 3 days. You're hot. You're probably hungry. You've been in shit. Actual living, actual.
I could only imagine like you, like falling under like the herd mentality of it. And then I'm like seeing you like rip up a fucking food truck and set shit on fire. Like I'd be like, what is? Yeah. I think if I saw you do that, I love it. I 100% do not know how I would react to that.
Does that? I mean, I'd like to think that wouldn't happen with me. Like I feel like I'm very much set in my morals that to me I wouldn't raid a food truck just because everybody else.
Yes, but Shawn, what about 18-year-old Shawn?
No, I still. I mean, you knew me back then. I still had a pretty solid moral compass. I mean, I'm sure there's there's a line. Like I you know.
I mean, it's all speculation. Like you don't know until you're in it.
No, but that's what I was going to ask. Like, does that kind of scare you a little bit to think about? Like, well, what would happen if I was there? You know, you're a little bit drunk. You're tired. Maybe you're a little pissed off because they want $6 for a pretzel.
Shawn, I'm under the impression that when it comes to almost any situation, like I'm a straight white male, like I'm probably gonna be okay, no matter no matter what happens. I think I'll be all right.
I don't mean in terms of like getting in trouble or anything. I just meant in terms of like scary in the fact that like, would you look back like a week later and be like, oh shit, I actually did rip the lock off of this merch thing and stole a bunch of t-shirts.
Yeah, I think there probably would be a part of me that would be like, damn, like that shit was crazy. And then I did this thing and that was fucking nuts. Wonder why I did that. That's fucking crazy. Oh, well,
yeah. I had sex with a mannequin. Yeah. I don't know why I did it, but I did. I mean, thank God there's no videotape of it.
Thank God I brought the mannequin home with me.
Yeah, Mom always said I have to marry the first one I'm with.
Otherwise, I'd feel really bad.
But yeah, it's just it was just insane. And like, so when we talked about this earlier, I kind of asked like, what did you remember about Woodstock 99? So what's your biggest memory of Woodstock 99?
So like I said, didn't watch the documentary. So if you ask me right off the top of my head, what do I remember about Woodstock 99? Because they actually did televise bits and pieces of it.
Yep, it was on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So MTV had a bunch of the coverage, but there was pay-per-view, $60 for the whole weekend, or $29 a day.
I did not have the pay-per-view. I watched, whatever they had on MTV. So the things that I remember Rage Against the Machine had a really good set. Rage Against the Machine, if I remember correctly, had a really good set. The only other thing I really remember was Limp Bizkit. And from what I understand, Limp Bizkit is where things started to go downhill. Limp Bizkit was where you started to see fire.
So we all know I'm not a big Limp Bizkit fan.
There was also a Rolling Stone article, if I remember correctly, that kind of showcased the rampant sexual assault that was going on as well.
Yeah. So let's start with the sexual assault stuff first.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting. I don't know how you talk about this in any terms of it.
I sounded way too excited about that. Yes, Shawn, let's talk about that.
But like like both you and I are like very respectful towards women. Like we're not bro dudes that you would think of in terms of like, Girls Gone Wild Bros type thing.
Cool.
Right?
Thanks for killing the brand. You just did it in one sentence.
Oh, well, they're not. They've been lying for so long. You're telling me those guys don't go out when they see women and say, "Show us your tits." No, we don't. First off, we don't have that confidence.
No, I do not.
Yeah,
not
even at strip clubs, Richard and I are like, "No, don't worry about it. Like, dude, it's fine."
You're a nice girl. Go to college.
Be a doctor. But I'm a nurse. No, I understand I get it. You're a nurse. We're just saying.
Oh, God. I have to go.
But so, what they really, like, they said, like, there was a lot of that they showed in here, and a lot of it was being they felt drummed up by the well, first off, the Girls Gone Wild movement. Like that was really big at this time.
It was.
Like, oh man, could you not watch like Comedy Central like late at night and not see like the Girls Gone Wild commercial like every commercial break?
God. Like every single commercial. Yes, you're absolutely right.
And like 13-year-old Shawn is like, is this what college is like? And then I get to college and I'm like, I don't want to go to any parties because I've seen those Girl Gone Wild videos.
I'm not gonna get
My mom
raped.
said I need to marry a nice girl. So you had that going on. They said the pay-per-view stuff was like, they really felt like the people that bought the pay-per-view really wanted to see a lot of boobies. And so they kind of had those people really like looking in the crowds for the girls that were either they could talk into doing it or were doing like showing their boobs and stuff like that. It was a big thing whenever women were crowd surfing. You know, lots of handsy dudes. What's their name? Offspring. During their set, they basically said, "Listen, like we're seeing or we're hearing a lot of dudes getting a little handsy when girls are crowd surfing. Like if they're crowd surfing, that does not give you rights to put your hands on them at all. So knock that off."
Wow.
Yeah.
Kudos to Offspring.
He said, but ladies, if you see a guy crowd surfing, go ahead and grab his dick as hard as you can. I was like, I mean, you kind of got it close, but you know, sexual assault.
I'll still give it to him. Kudos to Offspring.
But they had that going on. And like they showed, you know, and like with this stuff, with all the video and stuff, like it's very easy to probably go through that and find like specific shots of it where it was really bad. And you saw like girls, they'd be up on guys' shoulders and dudes like just grabbing and pulling down. And if a girl was flashing, squeezing and all that stuff. And just like, and like, you know, like there's the stuff about women who are getting pulled down into mosh pits and all that kind of stuff happening.
Yeah. That's what I remember from the Rolling Stone article that I read fucking years ago that I don't know why it popped into my head.
And I mean, you think like people are staying there for 3 nights and like, I don't know if you consider it a heyday of date rape drugs, but I'm sure there was.
I mean, they were around. GHB was around at that point.
Yeah, and there's a couple shots of like guys like walking with girls that are very much look like they're passed out on their shoulders.
Yeah,
like 1 or 2 of those. So, like even that, like you just think about like how awful that was.
Yeah.
And like,
like I'm sure like if you look back at that footage, you're like, I'm sure you would watch the whole thing with like a winced like cringe face, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just a lot of like, oh, don't do that. No, please.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that like they didn't talk about too much, but I'm sure there was that stuff happening in 94 and stuff like that happening in 69. Like, unfortunately, I think that's a trend in human history that doesn't go away, even though it should.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be more or less or about the same. It's just, like you said, you get that many people in there, there's predators that are around. But yeah, they definitely touched on that. And there was actually this lady who, I don't know if she was there or she talked to somebody that was there, but she kind of was like, I don't know, she came to the realization, she's like, wow, like this was really an issue. And she started this foundation for people. It's like, listen, if you like, here's some of the things that like, if these things happen, like you may not have realized that like you were a victim, you know, and so she like let them reach out to this anonymous thing to talk to people and help them.
Yeah. You know, I could totally see that where like, you know, like you felt like weird or bad about it, but you didn't, but like at the time, like you didn't think about it. You just know that you felt uncomfortable. And then, you know, like down the road, like after the fact, you kind of realize what happened. But like at that point, you're like, oh, well, like it's too late to say anything about it. Like it's, you know.
Well, and they talked about like in some of those situations, like they talked about this one specific instance where they found this girl and they had her covered up. And I mean, she was obviously raped. Yeah. And it's one of those things with that many people. It's like, who did it? How do you find somebody in that many people? Ugh. So like very skeezy, very just like that's like, I don't know, just like one of those things that makes you not even want these things to exist because of all that stuff that happens. It's like, it's like listen, put a cap limit. This is the most people that can be there. And it can't be a nightly thing. You guys all got to leave at night.
Yeah, I think that's what like whenever you hear about like festivals and whatnot going on, like I feel like that's always like a lingering thing in the back of your head. Like just, you know, if you put that many people together in one spot, then even like again, like we were talking about, like if you take 0.1% of that and like those are your shitty people, you're still dealing with a lot of shitty people.
Yeah, well, so to touch back kind of on like our herd mentality, they kind of talked about where, you know, like it almost became lawlessness too. Like the security guards that they hired, this was the other crazy. Let's talk about the security guards. So basically with the security guards, they got private security and the training was like a 3-hour thing where the person giving the like test told everybody the answers and then gave the test out.
Oh no. It was like, and it was like you watch it like, all right, we're going to watch this video and it's, oh man.
Answer 1, A. Answer 2, B.
Oof.
Answer 3, A. And so these guys were, you know, security guards and they were really just kind of like using it as a free pass to get in.
Yeah.
And again, people with power can use that. So it's like, oh, hey, you want this extra special thing? Here, show me your boobs and I'll let you do it.
Yeah.
And one guy even talked about the action he got because he was a security guard. And you're just like, come on, like, can't we be better as a society?
I mean, you would think.
But yeah, so and when everything went to shit on the last day, the guy who was running the security guard, anybody he could get on the radio, he told them to hide their badge, turn their shirts inside out, and get out because they were worried that like one of the security guards would get like basically murdered, like legit murdered when everything fell apart that last day.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get into this. Let's get into this last day.
So you said like, oh my God, it was fucking Limp Bizkit. They're up there. He was like, break yourself tonight.
Yeah.
That's what did it.
Give me something to break.
That happened the day before.
Wow.
Yeah, because I always remembered it the same way. Like to me, what happened, Limp Bizkit played. They were like, fucking break shit. And then like everything went to anarchy. Not the case. Limp Bizkit played and the crowd got pretty crazy. Like, apparently the guys went up to him and was like, hey, you got to like settle the crowd down because they were tearing off like wood panels and surfing on the wood panels and stuff, like crowd surfing on it. So
yeah,
dangerous, but like they were damaging some stuff, but like no fires, nothing crazy like that. Rage went on after them and kind of kept it going, and Metallica went after them. So that was all the day before.
This was all the day before. I 100% did not realize that.
Yeah. So the last day, Jewel was one of the last ones to perform, like right as it was getting dusk, and she kind of made a good point where she could really feel like the crowd had kind of turned, and the reason, like, I mean, you think about this: 3 days sleeping in like legit shit. So like the toilets and stuff, like the porta potties, had been
that they did
overflowing
not
for, like,
have
days.
enough of.
Didn't have enough of. They were overflowing. Like people were showing like homemade videos that they had there.
Yeah.
And like legit like poop everywhere.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if they got overrun with water or if people just kind of like got as close as they could and just aimed and went. They did have showers there, but apparently they had guys and girl showers, but the guys had basically like ripped down any kind of barrier between the guys and girls so that they could sneak some boobs. Again, it's like you ruin all the good stuff. But even in the showers, Richard, there was like 3 to 6 inches of water that was just floating in there.
Oh.
So you're going in and showering in basically everybody else's filth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's no longer a shower at that point. It's more of a communal bath.
Exactly. And so basically after day 2, I think the crowd was just kind of like, listen, they were upset with MTV because they're like, MTV is basically like corporized this whole thing.
Right.
Like, it almost became like this, like, oh, like the crowd turned against Woodstock because they thought Woodstock had become too commercial.
Yeah.
And it was like a lot of people were comparing it to like Lord of the Flies type thing. But so, like I said, Limp Bizkit play. Let's jump back to one good thing first.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Let's shine a beacon of light in this otherwise dark tale.
Day 1, Korn. They talked about like the set that they put on was like one of the best sets like Korn has ever done.
I could see that. Yeah.
Davis from Korn, he was interviewing this. He said like after the first song, I kind of had like this out of body experience.
Wow.
And after the set, when he walked off stage, he like passed out, like fell over and passed out.
Wow.
Just from, I don't know, probably heat exhaustion was probably hallucinating from heat exhaustion. Is probably what it was.
And somehow managed to pull off an entire set in the middle of his fugue state.
But yeah, so that first day looked like it went pretty well. Like day 2 towards the end was getting kind of rough. But like you think about like Limp Bizkit, like they're pretty like, you know, they've got a lot of anger. Rage, you know, they kind of like they set a fire on the stage for one of their songs, and then you know definitely kind of some more anger stuff in there. Metallica as well. So the last day, Richard, Jewel plays. Like I said, she mentioned that she like could really see the crowd turning. Creed was the next to last.
At that point, that's when you know, like 3 days of the heat, 3 days of like, you know. Things are like, okay, but see, here's the thing is like, if you're one of those 500,000 people, like if you're fed up at that point and you like, let's say that you were, you know, super excited to see Korn or super excited to see like Rage or Limp Bizkit or stuff like that. Like here's, I guess, realizing now that these bands played on the day before. Okay. I think in my head, I would have looked at the slate for day 3 and been like, okay, Jewel, and you just said Creed. And they brought out Robbie Krieger, who was the Doors guitarist. And they mentioned it here, like when they did that, like nobody in the crowd knew who he was. Oh, probably not.
Because it's like they tried to capture this like 69 like Woodstock feel, but it's like nobody knew who the Doors were. Like that was their dad's music or their grandpa's music.
They probably knew who the Doors were, but like they're like, okay, you're not Jim Morrison. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, bring him out. Where's he at?
But I guess really like. In my head, I would look at day 3 and be like, well, it's Jewel and Creed. Like, let's just go. Like, let's just leave.
I'm not going to lie, Richard. Like, the first day I go to, like, any amount of porta potties and it's just, like, shit covered, I'm done. Like, I don't care if Papa Roach is playing. It's like, listen, let's go home. And so the band I feel that got kind of off scot-free from all this was Red Hot Chili Peppers. They were the last band to play on the third day.
Okay.
And so like they talked about like the fires that were being started, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people had, you know, lighters and stuff like that, but apparently right as the last few bands were playing, a couple of days before, somebody had passed out candles for like gun violence because Columbine had happened like 2 or 3 months before all this.
Is that right?
I think so.
No, it would have been like oh yeah, no, I think you are right.
April
20th of 99, yeah.
So like this, people were giving out these candles, kind of like, hey, on the last day we're going to do this vigil for gun violence, yada yada yada. And then you know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers played, and that's when people started just burning stuff. And they came out and they told the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like, listen, like shit's getting like crazy. We need you to like help so we can get a fire truck in here and get this fire put out. And
yeah.
He's like, yeah, got it. And he started telling them that, and then they kicked into another song. And as more and more fires are happening, fire trucks come in, they added fuel to the flame, I think, by playing why am I forgetting the guitarist's name? The one who did the national anthem. Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, okay.
They started playing his song Fire.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so, like, they definitely, I don't feel like, did anything to really kind of help the situation.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
One other funny thing is I know, like, Flea, he always plays with a sock on his dick.
Right.
At Woodstock, he just played completely naked.
Huh. Okay.
So his wiener was just hanging around, flopping around.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, they definitely kind of pushed for like, just pushed more for like, they didn't really do anything, I think, to help. So I think like Limp Bizkit gets this whole like, oh yeah, it was totally 100% their fault. They're the ones who did it. They're the, you know, the bro.
I
rock
wonder
band.
why that is.
I don't know.
Because like really, when you like, in my head, like every time you see like you think about like a story that you've seen about Woodstock 99 or whatever, they're playing Limp Bizkit, and then you see pictures, it's coupled with images of these roaring bonfires fucking going on and people breaking shit. Like, and I get that the song fits the image that you're seeing on the screen, but it's really kind of a revelation for you to say like, oh, all that was the day before. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Because when they started showing them breaking like stuff off and crowd surfing, I was like, oh, okay, so when does the fire start?
Yeah.
And they're like, and then the day ended. I'm like, wait, what? And then the next day started. I'm like, but I was always told there was fires.
Yeah.
And then they show the next day of when they
I remember seeing
happened.
Pictures of them. Yeah. That's crazy.
It kind of blew my mind there too, that they kind of put a lot of the blame on Limp Bizkit for that, which, I mean, they added to it, but like when you look at Rage Against the Machine, they're not very like, hey, let's all love each other. They're like, fuck the corporate overlord.
Right.
Guess who you're paying all this money to? Who's making a fat bank on this? The corporate overlord, MTV.
Yeah.
And then Metallica's Metallica. They're like, fuck you, kids, and your Napster. Pay $60 for a CD. But yeah, like Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of gets off a little scot-free for that. And the other thing they did with this too is Moby was in this documentary, and Moby did like the I'm not a big Moby fan, and I don't think
I can name like maybe 2 Moby songs.
He seems very pretentious to me.
He comes off like a more arrogant Michael Stipe.
Yeah. And so like
from
he
R.E.M.
talks about So he talks about, because he's one of the guys they interviewed like now, and he had some home videos, and like one of the first things they show of him is there's like this homemade cardboard thing with like different people's names that are at the show. And I don't know how big Moby was in 99. I don't remember him being huge.
I mean, I would say that he was, he had some songs. I wouldn't put him like on par with, say, like the Chili Peppers at that point. Yeah.
But like on the sign, like apparently his name wasn't on it. So he was griping in this home video the whole time.
Oh my God.
And as like he's talking like in the now time, he was just saying like, oh, when we showed up, like you just get this sixth sense about like crowds. And I knew right when I showed up, it's like, oh, there's a lot of backwards hat wearing people here. Like I've got a bad feeling about this. And he's like, after we did our show, and I don't remember when they did their show, if it was like Friday night or Saturday night, he's like, we just packed up and left because I knew something bad was going to happen.
Okay.
I was like, all right.
And you're like, cool, Moby. You didn't tell anybody else.
Yeah, no shit, right? But the thing, and he even really hammered on this, which like there, like new metal had kind of started at this point.
Yeah.
And I feel like new metal's more like Korn than Limp Bizkit. Like Limp Bizkit's kind of like its own
I would agree.
Rap rock hybrid.
I would agree. Korn, I would say that Korn is definitely more new metal than Limp Bizkit. By far.
And they were trying to wrap it all into like new metal being like this. And it's funny because these are artists that were saying this, and they're trying to like almost blame the music for what happened.
Yeah.
Because like Kid Rock was early in the day on day 2, and they even kind of like pushed on him like he was kind of a problem.
See, I would put Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit closer together than Korn and Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, I would too. But like Kid Rock was just starting his, kind of his rise to fame, and like the guy who was writing in his journal that passed away, he was talking about like, oh my God, Kid Rock played every instrument. It was the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was like the first day. And the thing that they really talked about in Kid Rock is like, if you want to see the epitome of like corporatism, like Kid Rock showed up in this big fur coat in 100-degree weather, and these kids are out here in the slosh. I'm like, that's just Kid Rock. That
was his persona at the time. Like now he's got the fucking, I don't know what he's got going. Now he's like I like a combination of fucking like Larry the Cable Guy and I don't know what else. Like,
yeah, he's got a weird kind of.
He's got this weird shtick going on now.
I really liked Kid Rock when he first came out.
I bought the first album. I loved the first album. First album I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and his second was the second one I think was like his greatest hits, because apparently he'd been like doing music for like 10 years before.
Yeah, I think I did not. I think the first one's the only one I bought. After that, like I think I heard singles off of the next album, and I was like, no, that's not for me.
I think that was one. There's like one song I liked, and the rest I kind of forced myself to like.
Yeah,
I don't remember if I got any more of his or not. But yeah, I mean, it's just, again, like the biggest revolution to me, and I mean, maybe I want you to kind of think about this a little bit more and tell me what you think, but it was the whole, like, this whole thing was blamed on Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
And I just can't see I mean, obviously, yeah, they kind of like had a part in it, but they weren't the direct cause that I've been led to believe for 20 years.
Well, and again, I mean, and it's like you just said a couple seconds ago, that, I mean, say what you want, but like, I think like blaming the music for what happened, I think is kind of like a shitty excuse. Like, music didn't make those people do what they did. Like, there was just shitty people that did shitty things.
Yeah, and I don't really know if there's like a great way to fix any of that. I mean, the thing I think about is like you have 500,000 people, not enough resources for them.
Yeah.
I mean, and they haven't had one since. And they talked about like Coachella kind of spawned like 3 or 4 months after this. And they were talking about like, oh, Coachella like was ran so much better. And it's this, that. But isn't a Coachella ticket like thousands of dollars?
It's a Coachella ticket's like not cheap. It's kind of pricey. Well, I mean, okay, like you look at things that have gotten even things that have, that started as a small thing and have gotten super commercial, like Coachella, like you said, or even like Burning Man. Like,
yeah. Oh shit. I bet if you did a documentary on Burning Man, what that would look like.
I mean, like that shit that like literally involves like, could easily be a recipe for disaster. But somehow it always ends up not.
But Burning Man seems more spread out though.
Well, because with Burning Man, you are literally in the middle of the desert.
So I wonder that's probably just kind of like the main recipe for this disaster is the fact that they were 400,000, 500,000 people in a space locked in for that probably realistically could only hold like a couple thousand people.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And also like, I'm sure that, like with Burning Man, it's like, there's a lot of makers. There's a lot of makers in that movement. A lot of people that like are very, like do it yourself, self-sustaining kind of things. And so I'm sure like a lot of the infrastructure when it comes to Burning Man, like is provided by the guests themselves.
That's true. Like you're bringing your own food, your own drinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so you said like this is something that you wanted to go to. Like if they were doing like, because they were going to do a Woodstock 19 or Woodstock 20, one of the two. It got canceled.
I think it was like 19, and then it canceled.
Like to me at this point, it feels almost like if you were going to do that, like to me that's like saying, hey, we're gonna unleash Titanic 2. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that if you're gonna do it, I think that it probably needs to go more the route of like we were talking about, like a Coachella or a Burning Man, where I think that you need a much wider space, because as far as I know, Coachella's kind of in the desert as well.
It's in, where is it at? There's like a specific town it's in every year.
I mean, Coachella's kind of like I said, like Burning Man is it's in the desert.
Indio Club at the Empire Polo Club.
I have no idea where that is.
It's a 78-acre polo club. So that probably tells you the type of people going to Coachella.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's kind of like going to like a wine tasting at Napa Valley.
So either have a space to provide for a whole lot of people, or have a very tight space for nobody except like, a Kardashian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I was trying to make so it's like a wine tasting at the Napa Valley. Like there usually isn't much like craziness that happens there, right? Like it's probably pretty tame. But you do nickel night at, Comiskey Park with a bunch of people. A lot of bad stuff typically happens. Not saying anything's wrong with either one people, but it's just a little bit of extra kind of ingredients to cause chaos.
You create kind of a paywall there, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like me. Like if I go to a place and it's like, hey, we got, dollar well drinks. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is going to be a long night.
Yeah.
But if I go to a place and it's like, hey, this is $700 a bottle, it's like, whew, I'm going to be drinking this one a little slower than most.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting documentary. Like I said, the biggest thing to me was like, I feel like I was kind of lied to about who probably should get most of the blame for it.
Well, I think that the crowd should get most of the blame for it. on top of the promoters for the, lack of resources, lack of actual real security with actual real training and just physical manpower when it came to a security force.
Yeah, and I wonder if like we said, 69 probably had some crazy stuff, but again, not as much publicity, very much kind of hidden anything bad that would happen. 94 seems like it went off without a hitch too much. So I wonder if it was just the hubris of like, oh, well, we can do this bigger then. Like we did 94 fine. And the guy talked about like a lot of it was trying to figure out how to make some money out of it too, because I don't think he made anything in 69, made very little in 94. And I think the whole festival made like 20 grand in 99. I thought they said 10 or 20 grand.
I could see it.
Which, I mean, when you consider lawsuits and stuff that probably came after, it probably lost a ton of money.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
But so I guess that's the question, Richard. Would you want to go to a Woodstock?
Well, okay, so you're telling me that if there was another one announced, would I go?
Woodstock 2022. Well, Black Sabbath is going to play.
Well, I mean, Shawn, I think at this point, Black Sabbath wouldn't play Woodstock. I think that the era of like going to something like that has kind of passed me by. Like I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's gonna be Lil Nas, Miley Cyrus, Sheryl Crow,
right? And nothing against them, but that's just like I think that if you're gonna do something like that, like you have to cater to a younger generation that I am just no longer a part of. So I think if they did I wouldn't go, and then I would just feel old.
Yeah.
And bad.
Like, turn it down. It's 9:00. I'm ready for bed.
Open the door to my RV. Some people are trying to sleep.
Lil Nas, how about a little noise? Sun's down. But yeah, so that's my Woodstock 99 documentary review, Richard. So what do you have for some Richard's closing thoughts?
I didn't ask you. Would you go?
No,
I didn't think you would.
Like I said, like I think if Woodstock did like what like Ozfest does, where it goes to like cities, that'd probably do pretty well.
Yeah, and also with Ozfest, it's one day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, probably not. Like, I don't even know if I'd want to go to like the 10 or 15,000 people festivals anymore. Like, just being around so many people, it's just, I don't know, just not my thing anymore.
I mean, I think I wouldn't mind going to like, say, like a Burning Man. Like, I think I wouldn't mind going to like Burning Man, but I think that I mean, in that sense, I feel like I'm comparing apples to a Volkswagen Bug. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they're two very different things. And so it's not really a fair comparison, but I don't mind going to a festival, but I think that if a Woodstock for me, like that time has unfortunately passed. And all this entire show has done today is given credence to the fact that I am an old man.
Well, so here's a better question then. So Woodstock 22 is coming up. Let's say it's happening. And one of your kids is like, Dad, I'm going to go.
Ooh. Ooh, that's a toughie.
Yeah.
Man, well, I think I would probably like now that we live in an era of, like you were saying, now that we live in an era of cell phones, I think I would feel.
How do you think a cell phone's going to work with 400,000 people? That all have cell phones?
You're absolutely right. But at least I feel like there's somewhat of a tether.
Yeah. I'd probably do like what my dad did when I asked if I could get a motorcycle. He's like, I mean, you can, but I prefer you not. And just that little nugget of like, you think about it and you're like, yeah, that's probably a bad idea.
And sit them down and tell them of the tragedy of a band called Creed.
Like, watch this Girls Gone Wild video.
But wait until I'm out of the room. Jesus.
Dad, I saw you on there. Oh, shit, I showed you the wrong one.
Mom?
But on that note, I guess, Richard, what do you have for some Richard's closing thoughts?
Music defines a generation, and sometimes that definition can be skewed. And so we have to remember that while music may help define a generation, it does not solely define a generation. I am not the product of Limp Bizkit and Creed.
I like it. All right, well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping before they kick us out of the festival. Visit our website, we're languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. And we always like to thank, I'd go to, if these two wanted to go to Woodstock 22, I'd be like, you can.
I'd say send me
I'd
video.
You not. Our two patrons,
not that
Wendy
video.
And Aaron. Aaron would definitely send you that video.
He would. Bastard.
He's like, hey, you want to see my flea impression?
No. Whoa.
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good, sir.
All right. Well, that's all the bromance have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't be a why.
Be a why not.
Just so much poo, like everywhere.
Oh.
And then people are like sliding in it. And then some people are putting in their mouth like, I'm eating mud. It's like, that's not mud.
I can't do it.